A little better now. Good to be here, brother.
Yeah, we had some technical difficulties, but we got it straight. We're here to bring you this great episode. Now, I know you write a lot of books about, the mob. You wrote books about John Alite. You've been a guest on our friend Larry Mazza's show, who I recently had a chance to interview. But, you didn't start out writing books. You actually had a little bit of brush with law enforcement yourself. So kind of tell us a little bit about where you grew up and, your early life, and then what led you into writing books.
Well, I grew up in Rockaway Beach, which is not too far from Brooklyn or Queens, near Howard Beach area, really.
Right?
And growing up, I was when I was in elementary school, I was a quiet kid. I wasn't a troublemaker, and kids picked on me, the way it was back in those days. And I was jumped every day. And when I left school, I was getting jumped and beat up every day, basically. So when I got into junior high school, I befriended a guy. His name is John, and he was a Greek guy just like me. And we connected, because of our mutual backgrounds. And I, felt this is the best thing for me at the time is to join, John's gang, to get in the gang, and the best way to protect myself. So I initially had to get initiated back in those days if you had to do something. And I decided to steal something from the store. So the store I decided to steal from was like a 5 and 10 back in those days, sort of like a CVS.
Right.
And I decided to steal a Penthouse magazine of all things. So I took it and I put it in. I was like in around the summertime, and I took it. I put it in underneath my shirt and shoved it down my pants. So as I'm leaving, the security there, the cop, stops me. He tells me, "Where you going?" I said, "I'm going home." And he says, "No, you're not." I said, "Why?" He says, "Pick up your shirt." Now back then, remember, they didn't have cameras back then. So
Right.
somehow he saw me, and I had to do what he told me to do, So I lifted the shirt. He took out the Penthouse magazine. He said, "Hey, what's this?" I said, "All right, you got me." He goes, "Listen," he said to me, "you go home, and I'm going to call you. I need your phone number, your father's name, and your address." Back in those days, we did what the kind of cops told us pretty much what to do. We didn't fight back. So I gave him the information, and he said, "I'm going to call you and make sure you're home." I freaking ran home after that, and I wasn't that far from the house. So I got home in time to get the phone call. When I got the phone call, because I had a phone in my room as well, I disguised my voice, making it sound like my dad. And I'm like, "Yeah, this is Mr. Christopher's. How can I help you?" And the guy's telling me, "Your son did this and that." "All right, thank you very much." So I got it. I kind of got away with it. To this day, my father doesn't even know that happened. To this day. So that's how I kind of got mixed up in hanging out with guys like that. Gangsters, not gangsters, but gangs. In
Right.
those days. But also seeing guys that used to come to my dad's place were a lot of like some heavy hitters, like Vicarina from the Colombo family, Angel Ruggiero from the Gotti's crew.
Right.
Um, we used to have this guy, Sally, who was a bookmaker. He used to come to the store all the time. Mind you, I'm like 12, 13 years old at this time. So I'm a little bit in awe of these people. And Sally used to bring in what we had back then, was called football sheets, where people could bet on games.
Mm-hmm.
Saturday college games, Sunday pro games. So I took one of the sheets that he was bringing to the store every day and went to the local library and made Xerox copies of the football sheet. And I went to school, had the kids betting with me. I was making good money until my father found out what I was doing. And he says to me, "You got to stop doing this." Because, Sally finds out you're making Xerox copies of the damn thing and he's not getting money for it, you're going to get in trouble. So I stopped doing it. So that was kind of like how I kind of got into liking these guys or getting involved in it, so to speak. And to answer your question about when I started writing about it, is when I was in school, junior high, in English class, they gave us a requirement to read a book. It was called The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton.
Okay.
Great book. And that book, I kind of felt in touch with it because the character, Pony Boy and Johnny,
Right.
I felt like I was them in a way because like their upbringing was kind of like mine in some ways,
Hmm.
and like the outcast, the guy who didn't fit in and joined the gang kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So that kind of it gave me um, the feeling to start writing about what I know and what I experienced. So that's kind of when it started.
Okay. Now, what age were you when you started writing like heavily?
Um, you mean not professionally, me just writing, period.
Yeah, yeah, just writing in general. Yeah.
Yeah, 13, 14 years old
Okay.
when I started.
Now, did you
Professionally, it
go
wasn't until I was a lot older.
right now? Did you pursue that through any type of schooling, or did you? Because I find this interesting because some guys just have it. They don't need to go to any type of thing to learn it. They don't need any help. They're not ghostwriters or need a ghostwriter. They just have that gift. Some people have to learn it. Some people, go to school for it, but then some people just have it. Did you do any type of schooling for this, or did you just realize that this was just something you were naturally good at?
Well, back then, no. I mean, I didn't take. I mean, I think in high school, if I remember, I don't remember to be honest with you. I believe I took like a creative writing class, but
Right.
just because of the fact I like writing, not to
Right.
learn how to write.
Yeah.
And
It was just a class that interested you. You were already interested in that type of
yeah,
thing anyway.
um, how I graduated, I have no idea, but I graduated. I mean, I got arrested. I got pinched when I was 21
Ooh.
for assault. Again, hanging out with the wrong crowd. But eventually, I straightened myself out. I
Did you
went
do any
to.
time off that pinch?
I'm sorry.
You do any time off that pinch?
No, thank God I didn't. I went to court for 6 months. Um, I stayed in. I was booked, and I stayed in the cell for like a weekend
Yeah.
until my father came to get me. And yeah, I
Well,
was actually.
sometimes you'd rather stay in there a couple days and let them cool
It's funny.
off.
No, it's funny. It's funny you say that. Before you took the words out of my mouth. When I was there, it was a Sunday afternoon, and I was there since Friday. So the desk sergeant comes to the cell, and he tells me, "Hey, Nick, get up." I'm like, what's the matter? And there was a black guy in the cell right next to me, and he thought it was him. Oh, you calling me brother? I'm like, no, no, not you. So I get up, and what do you want? He says, your father. Said to me, you just made bail. I said, bail? Who bailed me out? I said, your father's here. I said, no. I said, my father's here. He says, yeah. I said, you can go home now. I said, you take a look at my father. And he goes, hey, what about him? I said, he's 6'1". He's an angry Greek. Would you go home with him? The cop starts laughing. He says, no, you got to leave. So I get up. Of course, I leave. You know, on the ride home, I sat in the back seat. I'm not stupid. So my father didn't say a word to me the whole ride home. The silent treatment is like the worst.
Oh yeah, yeah, because you know it's
So
coming at some point, but you just don't know when.
yeah. So eventually, thank God I didn't do any time, but it was a 6 month long experience in court, which even that to me that's like doing time.
Oh
That
yeah,
was a
yeah,
grueling, not a fun experience. To be honest with you.
yeah. When I was in, I don't know if I was in elementary school. My dad got a DUI, but he was out of state. I was in South Carolina. He was in North Carolina, and this was on a Sunday. He was leaving a racetrack, a NASCAR track, and it just so happened to be on the week that we had like the final exams in school, like the 9 weeks test or whatever. Your big test before your report card drops. And I was having that Monday, and so he gets locked up, and we got to go down there to bail him out. It's like a 2.5 hour ride from where we're at. So we get this word at like 10:30 that we got to go up there. So we got to drive up there, and my mom's pissed, like she's cussing the whole way. And we get there, and I walk in with her, and she's like cussing at the guard, not at the guard, like mad at the guard or the lady at the desk, but mad that she had to come up there to get him. And so when they're bringing him out, he sees her cussing, and she's like, "You son of a bitch," and he's trying, like he's trying to turn around and go back in. He's trying to, and they're like, "No, you can't. If she bails you out, you can't stay here. You got to go." And he didn't want. He, like you said, he got in the back. He said, "I ain't putting up with this shit. I'm getting in the back and I'm going to sleep." He got in the back and he made me right up front with her. But yeah, I know what you mean. Sometimes, depending on the situation, overnighter might not be such a bad deal. It might save you an ass cutting when you get home.
Yeah, well, the funny thing, it wasn't my dad who kicked my ass; it was my mother.
Oh wow. So I mean, like growing up around your neighborhood, obviously, like you said, that neighborhood is full of wise guys. Did you have any dealings or relationships with any of the guys that was heavy in any of those crews?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, like I said, the Arena family, I knew the whole family. I knew all the sons, hung out with them a lot of times.
By
Um,
arena, for our listeners that may not know, you're referring to Vic Arena, right?
right, correct.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, I love the whole family. We were very they friends with my father, hung out at my dad's store all the time. They lived 2 blocks away from me, so I hung out with them a lot. Um, there was another guy as I was getting a little bit older that used to come in the store a lot. His name was John. Booby was his nickname, Sir Sonny. He was with Sonny Black's crew from the Motion Lounge.
Right.
He was he was one of the characters. His character, excuse me, was played by James Russo and Donnie Brasco.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, James Russo played him basically.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sonny Black.
so not Sonny Black.
That was
They
Michael
don't really
Madsen.
say they don't really say his name too often in the movie,
Okay.
but the actor is James Russo.
Right. Yeah. He's in
So
the Mob King now with Cyril DePaggio and those guys down there in
right,
Florida.
yeah, yes, he's in that. But he was in Donnie Brasco. It was a long time ago with Donnie Brasco.
Right.
Um, and that movie's pretty much incorrect, to be honest, to tell you the truth.
Really?
But anyway, oh yeah, very, very wrong.
Well, see, I'm
Um,
interested in that because I've got a little project that I'm working on, and it's really it's bringing to light how movies fabricate things. You know,
fabricates an understatement.
yeah, and that's what I get, man. A lot of these guys that I interviewed a guy named Johnny Curry who was a big drug dealer in Detroit. And that was tied into the whole White Boy Rick story. And if you've seen the movie White Boy Rick, Johnny Curry, him and his brother Leo were basically like the kingpins of Detroit. Johnny was married to the Mayor Coleman's niece at the time, so he was like top of the food chain. And he's the one who kind of put White Boy Rick in business. And he said that they didn't even contact him. And he was out of jail at this point. He only served like 12 years. He was out of jail when they filmed the movie, and they didn't get his input on it one way or another. They fabricated a whole thing. He said they didn't even contact him in the least to try to get like any input of how things really went down, that the whole thing was a fabrication. Everything they made up in there was a lie. And I get that a lot when I talk to people that know people personally about guys that's been based on movies.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely give you an insight on a lot of different movies, how wrong they are. But to answer your question, yeah, Booby used to come to my dad's store all the time, and he drove like a white Lexus. And me and him went to AC one time together. It was a blast. We had a blast over there, and he was a little bit of he was a good gambler. And I'll never forget it. We were, I think, at the blackjack table, I think. And Booby goes to me, "You got 5 grand?" I said, "Yeah." Do I look like I walk around with $5,000 in my pocket? He says, "No, no, no. Give me 5 grand. We can we can triple what we got here." I said, "John, I wish I did." I know what he was trying to do, but I didn't fall for it, you know. But he was that kind of guy. He was a great guy. I liked him a lot. He was a really, really good guy, generous. But yeah, he was part of Sonny Black's crew. Um, there was other guys like this other kid Hunter that I knew that used to came to the store. His dad was a Jewish gangster, and Hunter was just like his father, no different. And we used to hang out at all the nightclubs out on the island in New York. Guys like him, um, John Gotti Jr. I didn't know him or anything like that, but I saw him once or twice at the clubs that I used to frequent. He used to bring his boat and dock it right near some of the clubs like Channel 80.
Yeah.
I used to see him come in. Um, Another guy was a guy that I was going to actually write a book about, but it didn't pan out. Um, he was the head of the Greek mob in Astoria, Queens, in New York. His name is Spiro, and he's still doing time now. He's doing life actually. He's been doing life since like '92
Wow.
for a crime he didn't commit actually. And I knew him pretty well. I know the whole family, great people. And because I'm Greek, I used to hang out at a lot of the Greek clubs in Queens.
Right.
So the ones that he kind of owned. So
You're
I
not
was
talking about Anthony Spiro, are you?
no, Anthony Sparrow was Italian.
All right. I was about to say, I thought he was Italian. We said Greek. I was make sure we wasn't talking about the same guy.
Yeah, no, but this guy's name, his first name is Spiro,
Oh, okay. All right. I
Spiro,
got
where Anthony Sparrow is Spero.
you. Okay. I got
Yeah, totally different crew altogether.
you. Right.
Um, Actually, Spiro, the Greek, used to kick up money to the Lucchese family. That's who he was under.
Okay.
Anthony Sparrow, if I remember, was Plaza Bonanos, I believe, if I
Right.
remember correctly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I know that was the whole deal with Jimmy Calandra's crew and the Bath Avenue crew. That was I think what kind of was their downfall. One of them put hands on Spiro, and that started the whole decimation, if you will, of that crew. Well, I think that botched robbery started it, but that didn't help matters. He went after that, and then things just kind of fell apart over there.
Yeah, it was a Bath Avenue crew was a pretty bunch of lunatics, pretty tough crew, a lot of crazy guys in there, you know, like Carmine Briali and Joey Zam. There was a couple of guys that were pretty crazy up there. I have another good friend of mine who's a Philly guy, who's doing a life term, Nicky Slick. He was part of the Philly crew, so
Mm.
I knew him, and we still communicate to this day,
Wow.
back and forth.
So when you get into writing these books, I mean, with a lot of these guys that's, in the life or had these experiences, you kind of have to tread lightly, obviously to a certain extent. But how did you go about, writing some of these things? Because a lot of people say, when you got to ask permission to write books, or either they maybe have to give you your blessing. How did that go? Shed some light on that for us.
Well, not really. I mean, people write books all the time. They've been doing this since, my God, since the 50s, 40s. They've been writing books on the mob. It's nothing new.
Right.
Uh, and mob guys don't really care because, they respect the press. The press is the press. It's just the way it is, you know, unless you write something that's totally wrong. Like, in other words, if you were to write a book about Larry Mazin, if I wrote about Larry, and I know Larry well too, if I wrote a book about Larry, I said Larry's, let's say Larry's a Fanuc, he's gay, right, for example, and he's really not,
Yeah.
then you got a problem,
Yeah.
you know. But when I did the book with Johnny Alite called Prison Rules,
Mm-hmm.
um, which is about prison, it's about how to survive in prison. That's what
Right.
it's about. And that's actually out of my 4 books, that one sells the most, believe it or not. And when I started writing, as I was writing the book, the Gottis were getting on my case. They were sending me emails, letters of cease and desist letters, Twitter emailing me, telling me stop doing it. Why are you bothering with this guy? He's a liar. He's a papa dude, a D. And I'm like, leave me the fuck alone. I said, this is what I do. The guy, I'm not in bed with the guy. He's not my boyfriend. I'm doing a job, you know. And it got to the point of like stupidity. Like they really got on my nerves. Um, and I hold the respect to them because I got nothing against the Gottis at all, really. Actually, I respected John Senior,
Yeah.
even though flamboyant that he might have been and kind of ruined the mob to pretty much degree. Um, it was to the point of like it just got stupid because the book Prison Rules has got nothing to do about John Gotti Jr.
Right.
It's about how to survive in prison, and it's really meant for young people, young men and women, to scare them straight that street life is not the way to go.
Right.
That's basically what the book's about. Yeah, is John Jr. mentioned in it? I'm not going to say no. Yeah, there's a chapter where John Alite talks about his experiences in the Gotti family a little bit, but the rest of the book is not about that.
Right. Yeah, I know he's got a lot of heat with them over, disputes of what may or may not be true. And that's a hard thing that I've even come across as, an interviewer. Like, I'm born in 1983. So I can't tell you half the shit that went on before then, if it's true or not true. If I told you that, I'd be lying to you. And I'm not in the business of lying to people. What I do is I give people a platform to tell their story. Now, if it's guys that's, you know, a lot of people have, claimed that their stories are false, like Ramundi. Me and Ramundi had a conversation before I put him on the show. And I said, look, you got a lot of people that, they don't believe a lot of the stuff you say. And I said, to me, you say it with conviction, you repeat it a lot, so you don't mess up. Typically, liars will forget what they lied about. They'll forget dates or places or whatever. That's my experience in life, not even just in this, in life. They say it for so long they forget who they told it to. Maybe if you're doing it in an interview, it's different. I don't know, but I did tell him that if anybody ever came and said they have proof that he was lying, I was going to put him on the show, and he was okay with it. And so I said, well, if you're okay with that, then we can do it. And he's been willing to do that. So far I haven't had anybody that can do it, but at the same time, there's not a lot of people left from back in his day, especially people that are doing this type of thing here. I mean, he is an older guy, so there's not a whole lot of people left of his generation. They're either dead or in jail.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, you and I talked about that off the
Right,
record already, so I told you my opinion.
right.
Yeah, he's older than me, but I personally met him in Brooklyn.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm not going to say what I believe and not believe right now. I'm going to keep that out of this interview because it's got nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
But I have my convictions on it. But yeah, I mean, it's going to happen that people are going to fabricate things. I'm
Yeah.
not going to say that Johnny A doesn't fudge a little bit here and there, but then again, who the hell
I
doesn't?
think, yeah, I was about to say, I think to a certain extent, man, everybody does. If you were at the track and you made a $500 bet and it brought you back 1,000, you're gonna say, yeah, I laid 5,000 and won 15 or whatever. That lie's not gonna kill anybody, but it beefs up the story a little bit. I think to a certain extent, a lot of people do that, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, that's just a part of, everybody likes to exaggerate a little bit and pump themselves up a little bit more
Right.
than normal. I mean, that just goes with any business you're in. You
Hmm.
have to make yourself look a little bit bigger than what you are.
Yeah.
So you make yourself more attractive.
Right.
You know, I typically don't do that, but that's just me.
Now, was Prison Rules your first book with him, or you had wrote one before that?
Yes, well, I wrote two fiction books
That's
and two
Destiny's.
nonfiction. Yeah, Destinies is my first one, which is this one here. I don't know if you can see it, but this is Destinies.
Mm-hmm.
That's my first one, which I'm right now in the process of trying to make it to a film.
Okay.
The script is already done. The trailer is almost finished. Maybe this Sunday it'll be done. I already have actors interested in being part of it. The next step is getting the investors.
Right.
So that was my first book, which like I just said, trying to make it to a film. My second one was Prison Rules. I did with Johnny A. My third book was it was called Mafia Ties, the Greek syndicates, which is about the Greek mob
Mm-hmm.
and how they work with the Italians, the Albanians, and the Irish, which is this one here.
Okay.
So that's my third one. The fourth one was Destiny's Part Two, which is called No Honor Among Thieves, which I actually like better than the first one. But that's
Good.
me.
Yeah, the Greek mob, like you said, sometimes I think they're overlooked. A TV show that they were kind of highlighted in. Did you ever watch The Wire?
No, I heard.
Man, I mean, like HBO back in those mid '90s, early 2000s. I put The Wire and Sopranos are like that LeBron and Kobe debate, you know, right? Or LeBron and Michael Jordan, you know, depending on what era you grew up, you're gonna think one is greater than the other. But I mean, both amazing shows. But the Greeks played a huge part in the Wire as it got to the end of the major source of the drug connection that was getting funneled into Baltimore. So they kind of highlighted them, which was I think it was not very common for a show back in those days. Usually it led to, an Italian family or some Colombian connection or something like that. To link it to the Greeks was a different type of plot point at that time.
Yeah, well, there was a Greek element in Baltimore.
Hmm.
Um, I've heard of it. I don't know too much details about it, but because it was so under the wire, exactly what you just say.
Right.
Yeah, but they were pretty prevalent in New York and Philadelphia.
Right.
There was a Greek crew, about 40, 50 guys here in New York, which was under Spiro, the guy I mentioned earlier.
Right.
And there was another crew in South Philly that was under two guys, Harry Petros and Steve Buras, they ran the PCP trade, which is drugs,
Yeah.
methamphetamine. in South Philly under the Italians, under Philly, under sorry, Angelo Bruno back in the '70s into the '80s
Yeah, the Gentle
until
Don.
the Das Aldan, right?
Yeah.
Until Nicky Scarfo took over,
Yeah, man,
and then when Nicky,
I done an episode with Scott Bernstein on
oh,
that.
I know Scott.
Yeah, he runs the Original Gangsters podcast. Shout out to Scott Bernstein. And that when Bruno got killed in Philadelphia, that pretty much set off a decade long mob war. I mean, like nobody held boss for an extended period of time. If they did, it didn't really have a good ending. Um, you know what? Phil Chicken Man Testa took over for what, like a month or a couple months, and then he got blew up. Then Nicky Scarfo come in. Obviously, he wound up going to prison. You had the huge battle with Merlino and Stamfa and their crew. I mean, in the Riccabini war that they had with Scarfo. I mean, it was just crazy. It was a madhouse down there in Philly. I don't know how people slept down there with all that shit going on.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It was very unstable. Like Angelo Bruno was ruled for like I think 30 years. I think
Yeah,
he was the
long
boss.
time.
Yeah, because he knew how to run the family. He wasn't a violent guy.
Right. I
I
mean,
mean,
he'd do it if he had to, but
yeah,
by and large, he knew and he was aware of the fact that when you had to kill somebody and do a murder, that brought heat, which brought cops, which could in effect hinder the money coming in, and that kind of stuff was bad for business. When everybody's hiding out and on the mattresses, as they say, you're not able to be out earning, so that hurts the bottom line.
correct. That's what happened when Nicky Scarfo took over because Nicky was a paranoid maniac that he like Gotti to some degree. Um, they're both somewhat paranoid and very volatile. And Nicky loved the cameras too, just like Gotti did.
Yeah,
Maybe Gotti a lot more, but he liked the cameras too. And he didn't trust nobody,
yeah,
and everybody was a rat. And it was when Nicky took over, Scarfo was asking everybody for more money, more. He had basically like we get inflation.
yeah,
He bumped up the street tax.
yeah,
So when the Harry Petros and Steve Budas heard that they were going to get taxed a higher percentage, they said, "Fuck no. We've been paying the same for years with Angelo and Billy Testa. Why should we pay more now just because Nicky's boss?" Well, that didn't work out too well because they found Harry in the trunk of a car and they killed. I know, sorry, they found Steve Budas in the trunk of a car, and he shot Harry at a restaurant. So they decimated the Greek mob at that point
damn.
because Nicky Scarfa wanted his money.
He
So
was a brutal dude, man. Everything that I read, just by all accounts, didn't give too much of a shit. Gotti, like you said, he loved the cameras too. But one thing I give John, he was a gangster to the fucking core. Like I think that's all he ever wanted to be. That's all he ever inspired to be. And even when he went in, obviously I know he was the government's main target. And when Sammy turned witness, that kind of sealed his fate. But John, I'm sure, probably could have named some names and brought down other people. And, he would have rather basically done exactly what he did, which was rot away in prison and to give the government any help whatsoever.
yeah, that's what I respect about him. In that, he was a gangster to the day he died. Um, but people don't understand also that John wasn't as yeah, he was a gangster, but he never really. There's no real proof that I know of that he actually shot anybody.
Yeah.
That he actually ever used a gun. Yeah, did he beat guys up? Definitely. Did he? I mean, himself, he did beat up guys. He was part of a gang. Yes, he did all that. But when he became boss, even actually, let me backtrack. Even when he got inducted, when he got made, when he got his button, he only got his button when they killed Jimmy McBratney
Yeah.
at the Cozy Corner bar. But he didn't shoot him.
Yeah, the
Richie
other guy did,
Gallo
right?
shot him.
Yeah.
But in that life, even if you're at present at a murder, you're considered, you can get made. as long as you're part of a murder case.
Right.
And but he didn't, like I said, he didn't pull the trigger. Neither did Angelo Ruggiero.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I found odd because, like, the '96 Gotti movie, Gotti was supposed to do, or the plan was they were trying to lure him outside in lieu of maybe selling him like some stolen jewelry or something like that. Um,
Right.
and then, in the Travolta movie, he wound up shooting the other guy later on after the fact. I think he said he got out of prison to do it.
Yeah, the Gotti movie was the Travolta movie was terrible.
Yeah,
Totally
it
bad,
was.
inaccurate, bad acting. The whole thing was terrible. The Amanasante version is the best version there is.
And he killed that role as Gotti. I mean, you couldn't have picked. Travolta wasn't bad. I think he was the victim of a bad script, bad
Oh
writing.
yeah,
Travolta
terrible.
was not terrible as John Gotti, but he was not Armada Santi whatsoever.
No, I mean it's a lot of the story, a lot of that movie was inaccurate. A lot of things in there didn't happen. The part where, if you remember the movie, when Travolta's walking in the street and he's got two of his little, guys in the back walking with him,
Yeah.
and he's talking to some other guy. If you recall, he tells the other guy that they were talking about some other guy that owed some money or something, and Travolta tells this other hoodlum that he says, "I'll sever his motherfucking head off" or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Number one, he didn't say that on the street.
He
He
said
said
that
it.
on the phone.
He said it on the phone, and the guy he was talking about was the Greek guy, Spiro, that I was telling you about earlier. That's who he's talking about. Because Spiro, at that time, he opened up a gambling den, not to a bar. It's called bar boot game. That's what the Greeks played.
Yeah.
He opened a bar boot game not too far from a Gotti gambling den, which was a no-no. But he was cutting into their profit. So when Sammy was telling John that, yeah, I know who this guy is. He's the boss of the Greeks. And Travolta and Gotti Sr. tells Sammy, tell him, me, I, John Gotti, will sever your motherfucking head off if you don't move the game. He didn't say walking in the street. So that scene was totally off.
Yeah.
So
A lot of things off about it. I think originally they were supposed to have Stallone play Gotti. That fell out. Originally, Al Pacino was supposedly signed in to play.
Joe Pesci too.
Yeah, Joe Pesci was supposed to play Ruggiero. He put a lot of weight on. And then Al Pacino, I think, was supposed to play Neil Delacroix. Now, if you'd have had those two guys, that movie could have been a lot different. But
Maybe.
but with so many script rewrites and director changes and losing those guys, I mean, it's hard. I don't think you can put those two guys in a movie and it be bad. But I don't know. Who knows?
Well, you know what? Yeah, they did actually. They put De Niro and Joe Pesci to play in The Irishman.
Well,
And
see,
that
I,
movie
I
sucked.
like that movie. I just knew that a lot of the stuff that was in it wasn't factual. As far as an actual, like, if you'd have took that and not made it around true events, I thought it would have been a great movie. The fact that I think a lot of it wasn't true and most people knew it wasn't true was the knock on it. But I actually did like the movie itself.
Well, that's good. I personally didn't like it. I didn't care if it was too. First, it was a little too long.
Oh, as long as hell.
Yeah, it was a little too long. I think for me, because I know about this life and I know a lot about facts,
Right.
that it bothers me when they, like we said earlier, they take creative license to another level
Yeah.
and they really completely change the storyline and the truth. And the truth is just as exciting as the creative. I don't know why they do that. And like the movie, I don't know if you know about. There's a show on Paramount Plus now called The Offer.
Right. I've seen the first episode. I haven't watched the rest of them yet,
Yeah, it's made up. It's about how they made The Godfather,
though. Mm-hmm.
and so much in there is wrong. It's not even funny. I'm like, they make up shit. I can't believe it.
What are some of the big, problems that you've seen with Hoffa? I like asking people about, especially people that's involved with the life and getting their opinions on it. Obviously, like I said, when I was born, a lot of the shit had already taken place, so I know nothing to be 100%. But a lot of the stuff I read, leads me to believe that obviously Frank Sharon confessed to killing a shitload of people that people said he had nothing to do with. I guess he was on his deathbed, so why not lie and make himself seem a little bit more bigger than he really was when he was giving this so-called deathbed confession. But what are some of the inaccuracies that you've seen in that film?
Well, the Joey Gallo thing never happened. Um, no way. He had nothing to do with that. Zero. The two guys that were part of that was Philip Gambino and Sonny Pinto, are the ones that shot Joey Gallo, and his bodyguard was Pete the Greek, who was shot when he was shooting after them in the street. So Matty the horse was there too, who owned the Umberto's Clam House,
Yeah,
and Joe Iacovelli was the guy that they went to get the okay to go do the hit on Joey to begin with. So Sheeran has nothing to do with that at all. Even Hoffa, he didn't shoot him in the house. He got shot in a car, first of all. And Sam and Sally Bugs, I believe he's the one who killed him.
yeah.
So a lot of that doesn't sound. There's
Now,
stuff in there.
what do you think they're doing? Because they're actually doing a dig, and I don't know if maybe they've done it already, but I know it's coming up. They're doing a dig in New Jersey.
Well, good luck.
Yeah, I mean, I don't personally think you're going to kill somebody of Hoffa's stature and then take the risk of transporting them over a couple of states to try to get rid of them. I mean, maybe, but I just don't see that. I don't know. I mean, I like the idea. Not like might be the wrong word. I can see the idea of burning him at an incinerator and get rid of him really quick being the best option, which could be why you haven't found him in so many years.
Well, yeah, I mean, guys back then, you know, they would chop guys up. They would use acid to, dissolve the body. Sounds sickening, but yeah, they did it.
Right.
Um,
What
I
do you
mean,
think they did with him?
I'm sorry.
What do you think they did with him?
That's what I think. I think they either burned him, or burned the body, or cremated him, or used acid, something like that.
So you think
I don't.
part of it's true. You think that he did get killed, maybe
Yes,
not by Frank, but by Sally Bugs. You think
yes.
he got shot in a car instead of a
Hmm.
house, but he did get taken to some sort of crematorium or something like that and got incinerated.
That's what I believe. He was too much of a high profile person to be just left, somewhere, dumped somewhere. I
Yeah,
doubt it.
yeah, I think that too, because and it's very rare that I think a murder of that stature took place. And still, all these years later, I don't know how many years we're coming up on, but all these years later, nobody's talked. So I think it had to be minimal people involved. And I say nobody's talked. Supposedly, Frank had admitted to it, but, minimal people involved because that's not something that, happens often. Usually at some point, these words gets out that so-and-so done this or so-and-so done that. That's been one that's just been kept close to the vest for a long time of where he really might be.
Well, I think whoever did know, which I think Sam Giancana might have known, Momo Giancana, Carlos Marcello might have known, maybe Tony Pro could have possibly known. Um, so those guys already died already.
Yeah.
So I think they died with the secret with them.
Mm-hmm.
So whoever did this and whoever did even though I think it's Sally Bugs, but nonetheless, whoever that might have been who knew the truth took it with them.
And then Bugs wound up getting killed later on himself, didn't he?
I'm sorry?
Didn't Bugs wind up getting killed later on himself?
Oh, yeah, Momo got shot in his house, in
Yeah.
his kitchen, while he was
Yeah.
cooking.
Okay.
So, and with that guy who shot him, nobody knows who it was. That's still a mystery.
Mm.
Who doesn't know? Nobody knows who shot him.
Yeah, covering the tracks. You had an episode on a Reels, right? Was it
Yes,
Mafia Killers?
yes, correct.
Now, who did you talk about on there?
I did 4 episodes. I talked about Henry Hill, John Gotti, Sammy Gravano, and Anthony Picasso.
All right. So out of those, I was the most fabricated person out of there might have to be Henry Hill.
Oh yeah, big time.
I know a lot of people, have seen Goodfellas, and I don't know how many people has actually read the book that it was based on. I didn't say I read it. I had it on Audible. It was spoken to me in the spoken word. but they said that so much of that was fabricated to hell.
Oh yeah,
With that
big
he did
time.
not have that life that he claimed to live. That was a life that people around him had that he wanted. Shed some light on that. I mean, what was your experience with Henry Hill? Did you have personal dealings with him? Did you know him, or did you know people around him? What was your experience with Henry Hill?
Well, I didn't. I never met him. I met Henry Hill. I never had any experience with him, but I did meet him. I mean, he was pretty cool to me. Um, but the storyline is definitely wrong. Goodfellas, they, made rest in peace Ray Liotta, made him look like a god.
Right.
First of all, Ray was a lot better looking. That's the first thing. Um, Henry Hill was a wannabe gangster that never made it. Um, yeah, he was part Jewish, part Thai, part Irish, whatever, and he didn't, wasn't able to make it in that life to be a made man.
Mm-hmm.
But he, like I said, they made him bigger than what he really was. He
Right.
wasn't that smart. He wasn't that slick, and he wasn't that tough either. I mean, they made him. He was a, he was into drugs. He was a junkie. He was a thief. Yes, but like I said, they glamorized him way too much in
Yeah.
that movie. You know, um, yeah, was he part of Lufthansa? Well, he wasn't part of the actual heist, but he was part of the idea of bringing it
Right.
there.
Yeah.
That
In the movie, they at least did do that. He wasn't even there when the heist took place. He helped kind of put the guys in place supposedly. But at least they didn't go so far as to have him involved with that heist.
no, well, they couldn't because everybody kind of, yeah, even though, yeah, it was fabricated, but Henry Hill and Frenchie, um, which was McMahon, were the ones that kind of came up with the whole idea. And then, of course, Jimmy came into the involved, Jimmy Burke,
Yeah.
his real name, not
Yeah.
Jimmy Conway.
Right.
That's when they brought it to Jimmy. And then
Yeah.
Jimmy took it to another level. Um,
And
so a
wasn't
lot
there
of these things
there
did
was a
happen.
security guard that had a key or
Yeah,
something along those
Frenchie.
lines, and they set up not Frenchie, but there was another guy that had a key or something for one of it was in the book where they set
Oh,
him
yes,
up.
Pryor. Yes,
That was a
yes.
heist prior, so they kept sending they set this dude up with a broad in a hotel, and they got the broad to take him down to like the jacuzzi, I guess, and treat him real nice or however you want to put it, and gave them time to go in and get his
They
key
make a
ring. But
copy.
the problem was they had so many fucking keys on there, they had no idea which one they needed. So they had to do this a couple of times so they could get copies of every single key that he had on his key ring. So they had no idea of knowing which one it was.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. The
It
way they,
was pretty fun. I could see that being
yeah,
like a comic clip in the midst
yeah,
of all
exactly.
this.
Yeah, mouth pranks.
Yeah.
You know? Well, the other thing is Tommy D, Joe Pesci's character, um, and I love Joe Pesci. He played Tommy D's persona very well because he was a loose cannon. He was a Lulu, you know. But Tommy D was 6 foot tall. He
Hmm.
was a tall guy. He was tall. He had a mustache. He never really dressed very nice all the time, like they had him dressing nice in this movie. Um, but he played his part pretty well. I give it that. Even though the description was off, and Joe Pesci's a lot shorter than the real Tommy D.
Oh
That's
yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
man. I've seen pictures of Tommy D. Simone. He was a big dude, man. Just in the
Yeah,
pictures, you can tell that dude was a monster.
yeah. There was another movie called the Sinatra Club,
Yeah.
and they have the guy in there. I forgot the actor's name. He plays Tommy D, and he played him the way he really is. And
Wow.
I like that movie a lot because it was pretty accurate.
No, that's I've seen that one before. I heard a story that there was an altercation between D. Simone and Gotti over some suits. Like there was some suits. I don't know if they were stolen or what it was, but I guess like there was a suit that Gotti wanted and Tommy wanted it. Anyways, there was like they almost came to blows over some suits, and people have said that Gotti was the one that actually pulled the trigger on Tommy when he got shot. Do you know anything about that?
That I didn't. I've heard of something about that. I don't know how accurate that is. Um, I know there was an altercation, like it showed in the Sinatra Club, where Tommy D and John got into a spat
Right.
because of something that Tommy did with, um, oh geez, what's his name? John Gotti's a good friend of John Gotti's, whose sister was dating Tommy D,
Okay.
and he didn't want him dating. He didn't want his sister dating Tommy D anymore, but Tommy didn't listen. He kept going to her house, and when he found out, he went ballistic. And Tommy D was going to go after John's friend, and I can't remember his name right now. It's not clicking with me, but John got pissed off at him, and he was gonna they were gonna go at blows over this. So that might have been the real story, and somebody told this other one where John shot at him,
Yeah.
because that would see if that really actually happened. Like I said, I'm not 100% sure, but if John Gotti at the time when John wasn't that big yet, he
Yeah.
was still up and coming,
Right.
and Tommy D was connected to the Lucchese family. So if you got a Gambino and a Lucchese guy going against each other, it's a no-no.
Yeah.
You can't, made guys can't touch each other,
Right.
let alone, I mean, yell at each other maybe, but they can't raise their hands at each other.
Right.
But they both would have got whacked, if that came to. So I don't know how true that might have been.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that people don't grasp the full effect. When you talk about La Mob and La Cosa Nostra, I think they think, killing and murders and stuff like that. But there are a lot of rules in place. I mean, and, sometimes maybe more than you would think, more than the average association. But there's a ton of rules involved in that. Now, I'm not saying that everybody follows them by any means. We obviously know that's broken. One of them being that you're not supposed to sleep with the other guy's wives. But I think a lot of people, messed around with Henry Hill's wife. I think Paul Vario, there was reports that Paul Vario slept around with his wife.
Yeah, but you got to remember, Henry Hill's not a made guy.
Well, yeah, well, yeah, that's true.
Now, he's a boss. What are you gonna do? Say the boss is sleeping with your wife?
Yeah,
What are you gonna do? You can't say nothing. You can't even mention Paul's name.
yeah. But
So at
that
that
is
point,
true. I'm glad you brought that up because yeah, it's only if you're a made guy. If you're an associate or a hang around or whatever, you're an earner. You're not in that particular faction, so you don't necessarily qualify to benefit from some of those rules.
exactly. That's right.
Yeah.
But rules, there were rules like um, you can't whack somebody from the press. You can't go after the
Right.
press. You can't sleep with another guy's wife or girlfriend. You can't raise your hands to another member unless you have approval from the. Let alone, but back in those days, you had to get approval from the commission
Right.
or approval from your boss or your captain. Um, another thing, for example, in with Sonny Black, with Donnie Brasco, when Donnie Brasco first came in, he was with Tony Mira, really, and Tony Mira was part of the Bonanno family, and Tony Mira brought Donnie Brasco into the fold. When Sonny Black claimed him, Tony Mira wanted to have a sit down over it. Because he said, I had Tony first. So they had to have a, that's another thing. You can't encroach on somebody else's so-called property,
Right.
somebody else that they got under. You have to, there's got to be, you can't just take them without say, oh yeah, he's with me now. Unless there's some kind of a sit down or approval. So that's another thing. Um, I'm trying to think of other things that you are not supposed, can't really dabble in drugs, even though they do.
Hmm.
They all do. They all have been doing since Luciano.
One
You
thing
know,
I'm curious about that some people have broken and some people haven't, but the whole mustache thing,
mhm.
the mustache. They say you're not supposed to have a mustache, but guys like Gorgie Scarpa had a very distinctive mustache. And I don't know how true it is, and you may can shed some light, but the whole deal was they didn't want wise guys to have any sort of facial hair or mustache because if there was ever a time where they needed to go on the lam and they needed to disappear for a while, they could grow those types of things and they wouldn't have pictures of what they could possibly look like.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing. But really, in reality, during the actually it goes way back to Luciano days. When Luciano was in power, when King was coming up, after they killed Sam Manzano and
Masseria, Joe the
uh,
Boss,
I'm sorry,
Joe the Boss, Masseria, I think
Joe the
was his
Boss
name.
Mazzaria. His
Yeah.
name was escaping me for the moment. Yeah, Joe Mazzaria and Sal Maranzano. Maranzano had a mustache,
Right.
and a lot of the guys back then did. They used to call these guys the Mustache Pete's.
Mustache Pete's, yeah.
So after they eliminated Maranzano and Mazzaria, Luciano said nobody gets mustaches anymore because then you'd be considered a mustache Pete.
Okay.
So that was one of the rules, one of the reasons. The other reason was, okay, if somebody, if you commit a crime and you got facial hair, a mustache, a beard, anything like that, people can say, oh yeah, the guy had a beard that was
Yeah.
over here. So, and if they got a picture of you and you have a beard, you know what I'm saying? If they have a photo of you in the police department, oh yeah, that's him. So it's another way of IDing you.
Right.
So these are kind of the reasons why they decided not to have mustaches.
Okay. I've always wanted. Now, there's another one that's highlighted in the TV show Sopranos about, uh, uh, I guess the underlying rule that you're not supposed to go down south, so to speak. They say if you eat pussy, you'll eat anything, is what they say. So that's not, I guess, not held in high regard. Is there any truth to that shit whatsoever?
Yeah, there is somewhat. Some of the old timers back again. This is going back to the Mazzaria days, Maranzano days, maybe even Pravacci or Colombo. You know, those days, those guys thought that was, disgusting or it was unheard of. Only the, non-Italians do that kind of thing, which I think that kind of like went away a long time ago.
I was about to say, I can't see that that's still in play nowadays for sure whatsoever.
I mean, and no 69. There's no, I mean, come on already. The Greeks
Uh,
have no rules.
Now you actually went out there and done a show with our buddy Larry Mazza. Larry's a friend of the show. We actually have his book right here behind us, The Life.
That's it.
Um, how was that experience?
You mean from Mob TV you're talking about?
Yeah, yeah, Mob TV, The Life.
That
Yeah,
was well, I love Larry. Me and Larry, we didn't know each other growing up, but we knew the same people,
right.
ironically. And that's what me and, the Arenas, for example, and Billy Catolo is a good friend of mine as well.
Hmm.
So we have a lot of we knew a lot of the same kind of guys, went to the same kind of places back in Brooklyn back in the day. So me and Larry started talking, I mentioning names and places, forget about it. We clicked.
Yeah,
So Mom TV was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed being there. Kelly, his wife, was a great help getting it all together, and I can't wait till it comes out. Hopefully this month.
yeah.
But yeah, it was a lot of fun doing. Larry was a great host, and it worked out really well.
Yeah, he's a great guy, man. That's not to knock anybody else that's, came on our show, but what a professional and what a gentleman. And I can see he's taking this Mob TV, this Plex thing is real serious. It's coming off the ground, and I think he's gonna do big things with it. A lot of the guys and girls, women that he's interviewed on there has been guests on our shows. We had Bobby Luisi on. We had
Oh yeah, I know
Anthony
about it.
Ruggiano Jr. on. We had Joey Miami on, yourself, Dave Iaccovetti. We had him on. So we've interviewed a lot of the same people. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm a big fan of him and his show.
Yeah, Larry's a great guy. Meaning, and what I really like about Larry is the fact that he was able to put that life behind him
Yeah,
and really evolve into a good guy and doing the right thing, running his gym over there in Florida and marrying a great woman. So that's what I admire about him. That because it's not an easy thing to walk away from that life and just do a total 360.
oh
I
yeah,
mean, literally. Even Johnny A. I mean, Johnny A. killed how many people? And
yeah.
the guy is like an angel now. He's like it's a I admire guys like that because it's amazing how you can just change your life. Because most people they're set in their ways at a certain age,
Yeah.
so it's pretty incredible. I admire those guys.
No, absolutely. And like I said, we might deal with a lot of these guys on our show, but at the end of it, there's always a message of this is not the type of life that we are, glamorizing or glorifying. At the end of the day, there's only very few good times in this life. It's mostly filled with fear or angst. You got to watch out. You might get killed by a rival family, or you might get pinched by the FBI or the police or whatever. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's not really worth it. And that's what a lot of these guys push. That's what Larry pushed, and he's not ashamed of the life he lived. He did it as part of who he is, but at the same time, he's showing people that there's another way that you can do, things with yourself once you get out of prison. And you got to admire that from a guy like that.
Well, I agree. I mean, even myself. I mean, I was, you know, I don't regret hanging out with, with John and the gang and getting into fights and rumbles and getting pinched. And tell you the honest truth, I think every kid should get arrested once to
Yeah.
know what it feels like sitting in a cell, like I did. When I sat there and I said to myself, is this what I want? Is this what I want to be? Is this where the road I really want to take? It kind of woke me up just sitting there for the weekend. You know,
No,
it
I can
does.
believe it. When those bars shut, that's a sickening feeling, man. Everything you got in you just goes out when those doors clang shut.
Yeah, you're basically your freedom is taken away from you.
Yeah.
So it's
And
like it makes you think. So I'm kind of glad I experienced it because it made me realize that I'm going the wrong direction. I
yeah,
mean, I give a lot of credit to my parents. I came from a strict Greek family, so I give credit to my father, my mother, because they always tried to set me straight, and they might have been strict as hell, but they had they had their intentions were good.
right. Now, I mean, that's the message we try to send here on Crime and Entertainment. That this life, it might have been the what people led, but at the end of the day, there's a much better way to handle things. And I think like you said, sitting in that type of situation, hearing those cell doors shut, it does something to you. It makes you have a come to Jesus meeting, so to speak, really quick. And there was a meme or something, or somebody posted something the other day on Instagram, and it was about this whole Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing. And the meme said something about the worst prison in life is being in a relationship where there's no love. And all these people were commenting like, absolutely, 100%. I've been in those kind of situations, yada, yada, yada. And I commented on there, I said, obviously, none of you people have been to fucking prison. Because that is not the worst type of prison to be in. I can assure you of that. But that, like you said, until you sit in there and you experience that, it's not something that somebody can really even tell you about, and you get it. It's something that you have to experience for yourself.
Oh yeah, for sure. Definitely. I mean, what irks me more now is that um, back in my day, I wish we knew a little bit more how to deal with bullying,
Mm,
and I experienced it firsthand. Like I told you earlier, I was jumped every day after school. We didn't know how to address it back then.
yeah,
Back in the late '70s. So it's now, thank God, it's a little bit more of an awareness out there, and people. I think that anybody who's getting bullied should really find someone they can look up to. Your father, somebody at school, or whatever. Somebody who's going to give you a little bit of you know, positive message, a little bit of optimism, make you feel good about yourself, or even better, find something that interests you, whether it
yeah.
be drawing, whether it be some kind of a hobby,
Writing.
that writing, like I did, that pulls you out of that thing, and where you got to find something. I know it's difficult sometimes for some people. I hear young people committing suicide because they're being bullied by even computer bullying. I mean, that all you do is just shut off your computer. I mean, why
Yeah,
even listen? But it's it's something I think that is lacking in today's society.
absolutely.
Unfortunately, we have a lot of fatherless homes,
Yeah,
one parent homes, and it's a shame because I think boys, definitely need a father figure in their life in
absolutely.
some capacity. You know,
No, and I
uh,
agree. And I mean, even this recent Texas shooting, the guy supposedly was bullied as a kid. Now, to me, that don't give him any reason to go into a damn kindergarten or whatever it was, start shooting these young kids because they didn't have anything to do with that. But just if you take a second and look at it, if he was bullied, if that was the reason that made him snap and do this, than any kid that bullied him. I say partially that the blood of these young kids are on their hands because, when some people snap, it don't matter what the situation is. It might not be somebody that was directly involved with what they had, but when they snap, they snap. And, a lot of that stems from bullying. There was a kid not too far from where I was at. He was bullied a lot and he couldn't take it anymore and he chose to take his own life. So it's really prevalent in today's time that we address this. I think that and mental health are two things that we're really behind the bar on of getting stuff straight. And I know as men sometimes you don't like to admit, or even boys rather in school, you don't like to admit that you're being bullied, or you don't like to admit that you need help with mental health because it makes you seem weak or appear weak. But it's something that we really need to make sure people take seriously, especially nowadays, because it's a whole lot worse than I think it was in the past.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, what's crazy is that we don't have the capabilities to deal with it yet. Like you just said, we haven't caught up with it yet. I mean, what's taking so long is what we have technology up the ass now. We can do so much. I mean, here I am talking to you from my phone.
Yeah.
I mean, back in our day, we didn't have any such things, and and we didn't have the capabilities of dealing with bullying because
Hmm.
we didn't know how. But here we are in 2022. We're still trying to figure this out.
Yeah.
There's something wrong there.
Yeah.
Really.
No, I agree. Well, Nick, man, I'm glad you could come on the show. I've had a good time. I think we had a great talk. We covered a lot of stuff. Is there any projects that you have in the works or anything you want to plug while you're here? You have your own YouTube channel as well, correct?
Well, that's kind of like on the hold right now
Okay.
because I'm so busy trying to work on the film.
Okay.
But I mean, if I was to, if people are interested in purchasing any of my books, they could just go to, email me, nickchristopher's50 at gmail.com, and I can set up where they can sign copies of the books of any one of the four Destinies, which is going to be, we're working to make a movie into, or Prison Rules. Me and Johnny A can sign it for them, which is good for young people. Um, Mafia Ties, the Greek Syndicates, is actually getting republished by a Canadian publisher, which we should be out by next month, by this month, I think. And then Destiny's Part Two is, part two of the first book. So people can hit me up there, and they can be able to get a little more, access to what I'm doing.
Absolutely. We'll put that in our show notes for anybody that wants to hit you up and get you a signed copy of those books as well. We'll put it on the YouTube. We'll put it on the Facebook when we post this as well on all of our social medias. We hope everybody's following along with that over Crime and Entertainment on the YouTubes. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple. We're on the Stitcher app. Anywhere that you get your podcast, ladies and gentlemen. We're also on Facebook. You can like us over there and follow us on Instagram as well. Crime, the letter N, and Entertainment. Nick, I'm glad you could come on, man. Again, thank you for taking the time to come on the show and kind of share your story with us. And, I'd love to have you back someday. We can shoot the breeze on a little bit more stuff for sure.
I appreciate it. Thanks a lot, buddy.
All right, my friend. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I am Hollywood Wade. That was mob author Nick Christophers. And unfortunately, we are out of time. Tune in next week for an all-new episode of Crime and Entertainment. Nick, I appreciate it, my friend.
Brother, take care.